more about exactly what WeedMD does?
So WeedMD is a licensed producer and distributor of cannabis in Canada. We've been around since late 2014, licensed since 2016. We have, importantly, one of the largest and most prolific production platforms coming online in 2019 in the Canadian industry, if not, well beyond globally.
Wow.
And so we look forward to addressing said cannabis shortage, of which you're very accurate in saying that today cannabis in Canada is severely undersupplied from the recreational standpoint, and that of course follows through to the medical side. And WeedMD is standing ready to obviously supply that today, and more importantly, as we expand going into tomorrow.
A key part of WeedMD's focus is on genetics.
Yep.
Take us into that.
So in the early going, it was very difficult, and of course still today, actually, to tell the truth, it's very difficult for new licensed producers and licensees in Canada to get their starting materials, so the genetics by which they can start to grow cannabis. And so WeedMD was in a position whereby we had a plethora of genetics in our vault, in both seed form and growing on the floor as plants.
Okay, for the layperson, describe what genetics means.
So genetics are the different strains.
Associations with
cannabis
that
is a fascinating plant when you dig in. There are thousands of different strains that have been bred over the past 100 years and historically beyond that all address different things. So they may have a different profile of cannabinoids, the active pharmaceutical ingredients, if you want to think of it that way, as well as the ancillary molecules that are in the plant, so what we call terpenes, which provides the smell and the taste and flavor to the plant. In combination, what they call the entourage effect, those different molecules cumulatively have different impacts on different, say, medical indications, or from the recreational standpoint, different feelings that one may want to achieve. And so by having such a wide spectrum of genetics in our vault, we are able to provide a whole bunch of different products to our patients and our customers, and also sell genetics across the industry. And now internationally, where WeedMD has actually, somewhat uniquely in the world, globally, has now exported genetics to both Israel, Australia, and I can promise you there's more countries coming as we expand that international footprint of sales.
Who are your customers right now? Who do you market to? Who do you sell to?
Sure, so from our quite large distribution or cultivation platform,
right,
we have two major channels in Canada that we can sell through. One is the medical channel, one is the recreational, the new adult use channel
sure,
in Canada. So on the recreational side, we are providing now to 4 of the provinces in Canada: Alberta, BC, Ontario, Nova Scotia, with more coming very, very shortly. Mm-hmm. On the medical side, we are providing under the original distribution model, which is directly to patients. So we've got several thousand patients that are registered with WeedMD that we ship directly to. Very high margin, nice recurring business, and also very good to stay in that medical business, which is the company's roots. Beyond that, we're one of very, very few LPs in the country that has a deal with Shoppers Drug Mart. Shoppers Drug Mart being the largest retail pharmacy chain in Canada. This is a very significant distribution platform that we take a lot of pride in as having as a partnership, because Shoppers didn't take their partners lightly. So
right,
they came through, they vetted us all the way through to make sure that we were suitable, right, to be a partner to a firm of their size and stature.
What does production look like?
So right now we've got 136,000 square feet licensed and online, spread across 2 different facilities in Canada, about 2 hours just outside of Toronto. And that's roughly 10,000 kilograms of product per annum that we can produce once up, fully running.
Are you at capacity right now? I mean, is demand exceeding supply, at least from you?
Demand is massively exceeding supply. We're in a situation right now in Canada where we're selling every gram we can produce. And if we could produce more, we'd be selling.
So how are you getting to that level where you can produce more?
So it's a process. I mean, you've got to get the facilities retrofitted and up to speed. You've got to get them then licensed through the regulatory body Health Canada, and then you've got to start distributing. And so we've got all those pieces in place at WeedMD, which puts us in a great position going forward. And we've got beyond the 126,000 square feet that we've got online now, we've got another 9.5 acres or 400,000 plus square feet that are coming online this quarter. So right now, as we speak, people are furiously retrofitting the rest of that space so that we can be in a position to provide for and address
right,
the shortage in Canada.
How do you make sure that as you are meeting that demand, that You're getting up to speed, but the quality of the product doesn't deteriorate.
Absolutely, and a very good point. Part one is human capital. So we've got people on board, we've got master growers and cultivators that have done this before on scale and on time and on budget. And so we've got a history of delivering. And what we're doing now is just rolling out what we've done before across a bigger platform. And so, it just comes a matter of execution. WeedMD is all about execution in an environment when you guys have seen lots of cannabis companies.
Yeah.
You know that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there, and there's a lot of stories being told, and a lot of stocks that are sort of lifted and such on the back of said stories. WeedMD prides itself on being a company that's all about execution. And so over the course of 2019, we're going to deliver on that execution, and you'll see the numbers that'll prove out what we're talking about with respect to the scale and the quality of what we're producing.
You have partnerships in both Israel and Australia, at least right now. What's the plan for expansion to the U.S.?
So, interestingly, the U.S. is a tough country to ignore.
Sure.
It's got the size and the scale. And I can take you back to 2015 when WeedMD had the foresight to be actually one of the original multi-state operators. We owned a dispensary in West Hollywood, and we owned a couple of licenses in Nevada, which we then sold to focus on our Canadian operations in 2016. We've got experience down here. We know what it's like to operate. We've got a lot of contacts and partnerships, potential partners that we're looking at down here. There's sort of two mutually exclusive strategies that a Canadian company can look at down in the States. One is to list down here and look at the U.S. investor. The other is to look at U.S. assets. We're keeping all of our options open. In an environment like cannabis where things change on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, you got to stay on your toes, and it's all about keeping optionality. The important thing is we've got this fundamental foundation of cannabis that's going to provide for a very large revenue base for this company going forward. On top of that, we can layer in all kinds of wonderful things, including, of course, when available, partnerships in the U.S.
You've seen a lot of the food and beverage companies invest in some of the growing brands that are in Canada. Have any of the medical healthcare companies reached out to you, given that this is more of the space that they play in?
Yeah. There's been conversations. Still early days, but certainly many of the big pharma companies, to look at them in particular, are knocking on doors and kicking tires and starting to get very interested in what's going on in cannabis, realizing what impact this plant and its derivatives can have for various medical indications.
Sure. Novartis, one of the most recent headlines that we've seen come across.
Correct. Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of that coming.